Madeira, Madeira, Madeira.
What a trip, huh?
I mean, it was an amazing trip, but I don't know that it was the exact trip that you and I had planned or had in mind.
Yeah, I think we had some expectations that it didn't quite hit, even though it was an amazing trip.
And I think because of our experiences, maybe it could be really valuable to talk about it and have our experiences be a guide for other people. So maybe we should reflect back on our trip to Madeira.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So if you're not familiar, when you are flying into Madeira Island, it can be a little bit uneasy because the thing about Madeira is it gets really, really windy.
Yeah.
And before, a lot of people who traveled there a lot, the runway was quite short.
Yeah.
They since the early 90s, I think they extended the runway, so there's no issue. So when we talk about this, don't be weary. The pilots are some of the best pilots trained to land on the runway of this specific airport, but it is something to be aware of.
Yeah, totally.
Oftentimes the planes are rerouted if it's too windy and the winds are too high and unsafe to land. For us, when we were flying in from Porto, we had one attempt, and as the plane was coming in for the landing,
You suddenly felt it going up again, which is the strangest feeling ever.
yeah, the engine just kicked back in and you get pulled right back up. And it's just a weird feeling to see the landscape coming closer and then all of a sudden flying back up. And then the captain comes on and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we attempted one landing, but air traffic control told us that the winds were too high at that one specific point, so we had to pull back up.
Yeah.
And we're going to try it one more time. And if that doesn't work,
We have to go back to Porto.
And at that moment, Katerina gasped because it was more of like just feeling like we might have wasted that flight and having to spend the night back in Porto and then coming back in.
And we had such a limited amount of time, so when I thought about that, I thought, oh God, are we even going to go to Madeira if this landing is aborted?
Yeah, because we would have lost one whole day.
Yeah.
We already only had like 4 days.
Yeah.
But in the end, the captain made a successful landing, and honestly, everyone clapped.
And I cried.
Yeah, she cried of joy, and I clapped, and I never really clapped. It was just such a unique experience.
Yeah.
Our friends actually had 4 to 5 attempts before they could land, so keep that in mind. Not a huge issue, but something to be aware of.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll talk about flying out. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
In a second. But our first day, so day one, when we landed, we drove to the hotel, and you want to rent a car.
Oh yeah,
sure.
you have to.
We used Goldcar, which was an amazing experience. You can kind of pay for everything up front with the insurance, and you pick up the key, you drop it off. That's pretty much it.
You're all covered.
You're all covered.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why we got the full insurance is the roads in Madeira are very narrow and
Steep.
very, very, very steep.
So steep, up to 45 degrees.
Incline.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. Like, some of the roads feel like you're going straight up, and with the narrow roads as well, if you're not comfortable with driving that, it could be a bit of an issue. Luckily for me, I've driven that type of road in the Rockies quite a bit, but it still was shocking. One of the roads felt like I was going straight down into our hotel. And speaking of which, when you are driving, the best thing to do is to use Waze. It is a better navigation system, and what they use a lot. It gives you a lot of the road closures and tells you like how steep some roads can be. Because one of the turns into our hotel it looked like there was no turn, but it was basically like a straight down turn. It was pretty wild.
It was a 90-degree turn and then a super steep road.
Yeah, exactly. We stayed in Funchal,
which I would recommend to anyone coming to the island.
which is the capital of Madeira.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when we were at Funchal, we stayed in the center because we knew that if we weren't able to venture out and do a lot of these extreme activities, we could post up there in that city.
And still enjoy our time there.
Yeah.
Like there's still lots to do, even if you don't have good weather for outdoor adventures.
Exactly, which we didn't have, which we'll get into. So the first day we explored Funchal, and we had beautiful weather that first day. We walked around the old town, the main city, some good shopping. We ended up going down to see the Cristiano Ronaldo statue, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
If you guys know about the statue, then you know that it's like basically kind of like a deformed statue.
Yeah.
So not so good. And we ended up going to this one viewpoint, which is actually in the city of Funchal, which is called Forte Sao Jose, which is kind of like an old ruin.
Yeah.
And you get to see all the little cruise ships, which is fine. It's nice. You get to see the rock and cliffs.
And the ocean. Like you have a great view across, not across, but above the Atlantic Ocean.
Yep. There's also a casino.
Yes, which is a very, like, it has great architecture.
Yeah, insane architecture by the famous Brazilian architect. Why is his name slipping my mind? But I will throw it up on screen. And worth a visit if you're really into architecture and want to take some cool photos. But otherwise, you could probably just skip that.
Yeah.
Day number 2. Oh no!
Same day.
Same day we wanted to go on an adventure. We knew that we wanted to do a sunset adventure, and we ended up going to. We decided on the Valley of the Nuns.
Yeah, which is sort of in the center of the island, and it's a valley, and at the bottom of that valley is a town.
A village, right?
A village. So the views of that village, especially if the sun comes in at the right angle, just from photos, it looked incredible.
And as we were driving up, we were like, man, this is going to be so epic with the winding roads, the roads against the side of the cliffs. And right when we got to the top, about 1 minute away, the skies went gray.
And
as we parked,
a monsoon started happening.
Yeah, it literally just downpoured on us the second I put the car into park, and we were like, what the heck is going on? And we're like, you know what, we can do this. We got out, started walking maybe 30 seconds.
And it was windy and so wet.
Yeah, we almost blew off the side of the cliff.
Yeah.
So we're like, screw it, we're gonna take cover and hide out in this little cafe that's up there. There's a little hotel that you can stay up in that area.
Yeah.
And we had a little coffee and tried to wait it out, but nope.
It was just not stopping in any way. Like.
So we drove back down, and as we were driving back down, it started to clear up. And we're like, okay, maybe we need to go to a different part, because if you're not really familiar with the weather in Madeira, it has lots of microclimates. Yeah, so
the fact that it was pouring in that one area didn't mean that it was pouring everywhere else on the island. Yeah. So we decided to go to
Cabo Giro, which is a really famous viewpoint. It used to be free, but now once you get to that viewpoint, there's lots of parking, by the way. So you just drive up there, you park, and to get in, it's €2 per person. And once you get past the turnstiles, there's this epic bridge that is, or platform actually, more than a bridge, that's made out of complete glass.
Yeah.
And you step out and you just see the waves hitting the rocks below you. It's pretty trippy. Like, I'm used to heights and I'm not that scared of it, but having the whole platform,
you have to be okay with it for sure.
Yeah, and then you get the whole expansive 360 panoramic view, basically, or more like 180.
Yeah, 180 I would say,
of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
And we got this beautiful, very light pinks and blue sunset, and then the rain started to come back, and it started to mist over and become orange and dark and moody.
It was really cool.
It felt like you were out of like I don't know, like a Dune movie or something like that, like a tropical Dune movie. And
what's really cool with this platform too, it's almost 600 meters above sea level. So even though you're looking at the ocean, you're so high up above sea level, which is so crazy.
So I got some photos. I took some nice shots. My Sony camera survived the rain there. And then back in the evening, we just kind of walked through Santa Maria, which is the main street in Old Town Funchal, which is all the main sort of restaurants. It's a little bit of a tourist trap. There's some good restaurants there, but the main one, which is called Taberna Madeira, pretty easy, really good food, huge portions. Huge.
We always finish our food, and we didn't finish our food.
I think we ordered like two main dishes, what they called it, and two sides, and we could barely finish it.
Yeah.
Really good deal.
Yeah.
So that was day 1.
Yeah. Day 2 was my birthday.
Yeah, and it was really the reason why we wanted to go to Madeira, to celebrate and do all these hikes.
Yeah.
And so in the morning, we decided that we wanted to do an adventure right off the bat because we didn't want to risk what happened the first day.
Yeah.
So we went to
Miradoro
Balcoes, which is they call it a balcony in the sky.
Which sort of reminds me from the views of what Valley of the Nuns would have been. So you're looking into a valley, and I think there's a town at the bottom too.
Yeah.
But what makes it cooler even is you also have a view of the ocean at the same time.
Yeah, I think if you had to pick one, this one was better.
Yeah.
And what's cool is there's these little trees, and it's famous for these little birds that if you have some bird seeds or some bread, they'll come and land on your hand. And I got some really cool photos. I have never ever really used bird eye detection for my Sony camera, but I did that day and I got some really nice photos. And I am the furthest thing from a wildlife photographer, but I got some cool shots. It's good memories for us.
Yeah.
And what's cool is your mom called us.
Yeah, so if you care, you have reception up there. So my mom actually called me to say happy birthday, so I got to show her the view. Yeah.
So that was really, really cool. And then after that, we decided we wanted to go on another adventure because the weather got really nice.
Yeah.
Extremely nice. So we drove out probably like 20 minutes-ish.
Yeah, very
to another
close.
viewpoint called Miradoro Guandaste.
Yeah.
Which is very, very famous. There's a lot of like tour buses that go there. And it's because the landscape is epic.
And we spent a lot of time there because there's different things you can do in that area.
There's some peninsulas that kind of stick out into the ocean. There's like, it's got one of the most Instagrammable places where people can kind of walk out to the sort of the tip of that peninsula, and you can fly your drone out there really quick, take some cool photos. And there's a lot of little rocky edges. And it was where I spent a lot of time because I had the best opportunity with weather to fly my drone. Yeah. So I did that.
And again, I think what's also important for people to know is like if you're not into hiking, there's great parking there as well. Like,
lots of parking.
You could drive right up to the viewpoint and just walk a couple of steps.
There's also 2 glass walkways where you can feel like you're standing on, like looking down onto the water, which is really cool. There's also a really neat other viewpoint close by. It's like a 5-minute drive. And when you drive around, if you put it into maps, there's like a little sports complex.
Yes.
That has like an outdoor swimming pool, and it gets you down onto the water level. And there's like a beach there. I call it a beach, but it's really just black rocks.
Yeah.
And you can step out onto it, and you get right onto the water, and you get closer to the cliffs and the edges of the water.
Yeah.
And well, as this trip went, as we were hanging out by that lower part, it started to rain. So we jumped in the car, and we drove to a restaurant called Peter's.
Which was probably my favorite memory of my birthday.
Yeah, it was really cool. The restaurant is actually built into the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
And it's called a cave restaurant.
Yeah.
We sat on the patio and watched the rain pour down onto us.
Yeah.
But you could sit inside the cave restaurant and have food as well.
They were so kind. The food was so good. And then they gave us a little like... Poncha, which is the traditional Madeiran...
alcoholic beverage.
Yeah, and they just give you that for free. Ours was...
Watermelon? Yeah. So they use fruits.
Yeah.
And they create alcoholic fruit beverages.
Yeah.
Punches. Poncha.
Yeah.
It's a fruit punch.
Yeah.
And it's alcoholic. And they're strong for sure. But we just sat outside on the patio and enjoyed the rain.
Yeah.
And then we headed back to Funchal to our hotel, and it continued raining.
So we couldn't go out again.
And raining.
Yeah.
And raining.
And raining.
As you can tell, that's the theme of this story. And we ended up going for a nice dinner that I booked a restaurant called Olivia.
Yeah.
It's in Old Town, not Old Town, it's actually in the main
part of Funchal.
Funchal. A beautiful restaurant. I would consider it a nicer upscale restaurant, but not pricey.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in something like that, the food quality was incredible and the service was great.
Yeah.
Then we were on day 3, and day 3 and day 4 we were determined to do some nice hikes. So day 3 was a simple one. We wanted to do a Levada hike.
Yeah.
And Kat did some research on what Levada hikes are.
Levada hikes is, I hope I can explain that well. It's a hike where you walk alongside water channels. It's so the hikes are usually level. There's not a lot of elevation gain. They're level, and you walk along.
Well, there's a lot of elevation gain, but they're not steep.
Yes, and you walk alongside water channels, which were back in the day used to get the water from the top of the island down to where the farmers had their farmland.
Yeah, so because the Madeira is so steep and everything, it was hard to create water pathways and piping.
Yeah.
So they just created channels instead and just let natural gravity pull the water down to the soil. So as you're walking through these hikes, you'll see a lot of little plots where farmers are growing fruits and vegetables and tomatoes and cucumbers. And the one we did was
Levada do Moinho.
Moinho.
Yeah.
Beautiful one. So parts of the Levada hike, you were kind of covered by like the cliff, and then there's waterfalls raining down beside you. It was really, really beautiful. And what's interesting about that is it's really popular. So when we got there, the parking was all full. There's a little bit of parking, so we had to drive down to the next area where we could park, and it was literally, it felt like I was going straight down.
That was the steepest road.
Yeah, I was on the brakes the entire time. But what made me remember that hike more than the hike itself even was the interaction with the gentleman where we parked. As we pulled up to this area, you could see that there were a bunch of tourist cars parked there, and I pulled up and there's one spot and I parked beside his house as he was gardening right there, and I didn't want to be rude, so we got out, and in our broken Portuguese and English we said, is it okay if we park here? And in his non-existent English he was saying yes, we can. Smiled at us and he said, Levada.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah. And he pointed and showed us where to go. And his wife, and I believe his mom or his wife's sister was sitting on the balcony while we were hiking. And at the end of the hike, they were still there.
Yeah. And they were saying hello to us.
Saying hello to us. And it was they were just so kind.
So kind. Like every Portuguese person we've met.
Yeah. You would think that they were so annoyed by all these cars taking up their parking areas, but no, they were just so kind. The hike was great, super hot, pretty busy,
pretty long. It's a long hike. You have to be
it's probably
willing to do it.
It's probably minimum of 4 to 6 hours round trip.
I agree.
So it was great. So once we were done that, we were just exhausted.
And that was it for the day.
That was pretty much it for the day.
Yeah.
If you're gonna hike in May, keep in mind it's gonna be pretty wet and muddy and rainy. Yeah. So our shoes were a disaster. But safe enough that little children can even do it with enough care and attention. Then we got all the way to day 4,
which was the day in our itinerary.
Yeah, we did do a lot on day 3 because day 4 was what we were looking forward to. And for everyone who's been to Madeira and everyone who's looking forward to go to Madeira, it's the Pico to Pico hike.
Yeah.
That is the crown jewel, basically.
That is what you see everywhere. That is what you want to do.
So we planned to do that. We woke up really, really early. We had planned the Pico hike on day 4 because the weather was going to be 22 degrees or something like that and sunny.
Yeah.
So we woke up, packed our things, and left. And what happened?
We got to the top of... So you drive up to the top of Pico do Aero.
Yeah.
And that's where you start the hike.
It's just switchback roads. We were all driving in the dark.
Yeah. And as soon as we got there, it was all white.
Yeah. I mean, it started before. As we were driving through the switchbacks, we ran into a train of cars because everyone's also driving up. And then we hit whiteout.
Yeah. Complete whiteout.
So this morning was supposed to be the grand event of our trip to Madeira, which is hiking the Pico de Areio, and which is we were planning to do the Pico to Pico, which is Areio to Avivo, and we had picked today because today was supposed to be beautiful weather, high of 20, no rain. But as we've probably mentioned by now, the weather on Madeira Island is just absolutely unpredictable. So are you excited for this?
No.
It's pretty beautiful, to be honest, like this like mistiness but not what we were hoping for. And if you've done these sort of misty morning hikes, sometimes the sun can break through and you can get these little inverted clouds and be above them, but honestly, I don't think that's gonna happen because in front of us you just can't see anything. And it's actually quite cold. It probably feels like 6 degrees. But yeah, we're hoping for a break and the weather clears up. So I guess we'll see.
And to be honest, a lot of people just go up to the Pico, the first one, Arieiro, to see the viewpoint because you can. There's a lot of parking. Yeah. There's a cafe, there's a gift shop, and there's a platform. You can just walk out and look at the peaks.
Yeah.
And so when we first got up there, we were like, are we going to actually hike this thing today?
We lingered a bit.
We went up to the viewpoint. We couldn't see anything. And then we're like, screw it.
Let's
just do it. So we started walking. And yeah, you couldn't see anything, but the pathway was beautiful. Yeah. And the hike itself, like if you're looking 1 or 2 feet in front of you, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's honestly one of the most unique hikes I've ever done.
Yeah.
And what's cool about that hike is there's so many different little pit stop areas to rest. Some parts are extremely steep. Some parts are flat, but it is well groomed. There's steps, there's stairs, there's cables where there needs to be, where it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And then there's a second viewpoint that you go to.
Yeah.
And when we got there, we couldn't see anything. So we continued on. And for the most part, the hike is pretty easy. And there's these little tunnels that are built into the side of to the cliffs and mountains. And we basically walked through that first one because we wanted to see and feel what that was like. It was pitch black. People say you need a headlamp, but you don't.
You don't.
Your phone light is fine. Yeah. You get to the other side and you keep walking, and yeah, like honestly, even if it's complete whiteout, it is still beautiful. But in our case, it was just also wet, so wet.
Yeah, because you're in the clouds basically, so it's wet.
Yeah, exactly. And the Pico hike, this video isn't about the Pico hike, but you could probably get from Pico Arieiro to Pico Arrivo. Ruivo. Yeah, sorry. In maybe, I think if you're fast, 4 hours.
Yeah.
I would say. For people who are taking their time or taking pictures, it's probably more like 5 hours.
Yeah.
And then you do a round trip, and you can do a different loop. You don't have to go forwards and back. You can do one path one way and then a different path back the other way.
Yeah.
And it's a sight to behold for sure.
Yeah, we decided that we would turn around maybe a quarter of the way and head back.
Yeah.
Because in the end we decided that this was basically the view the entire time. And if you've seen video of people doing the Pico to Pico, it's really all about the valleys and layers of the different spikes. And this cloud cover is not breaking. Having said that, this hike is still
one of a kind.
One of a kind, and so from what we've already seen, just the pathway to get through everything is so insanely beautiful. Like I don't know if you can see that, but like there's a tiny cliff, and that's what you want to see. But we're not going to be able to see it.
So we did maybe like a quarter.
Yeah, we did a quarter, and then decided to stop and go back because we just couldn't see anything.
Yeah, and it just kind of was like kind of annoying because then, you know, we would have to come back and get our car anyways. So we got in a car, drove back into town, go back to our hotel, and
it was full sunshine down there. Like Funchal was full sunshine.
And 20 degrees, like it said it was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I Googled it and it said, hey, in the months of May, it can be 20 degrees, 25 degrees and full sun down in the main town and complete whiteout and rainy up top of Pico. So it doesn't really matter what the weather says. You really have to know what the weather is at the top of the peaks. And how you can do that is there's webcams. So if you Google the Pico webcams, you can see what the weather is exactly up there. And if I can find the link that I used, I will post it in the description because it was pretty much bang on.
So we kept monitoring the webcam the entire day, and at some point Michael's like, hey,
we were having
clearing
lunch.
Up.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We had two plans. I really wanted to do the peaks in the morning and then the Funchal forests in the evening, because the Funchal forest is just like this magical forest that I've been wanting to fly with my drone for a long time. And when it became time to go to Funchal, I looked at the webcam just one last time at Pico de Pico, and it was clear skies.
It was clear. So what did we do? We jumped in the car and we went again.
We raced back up to get to the sunset, and man,
was it a sunset.
It was so worth it. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
There were so many people who arrived just to see the sunset on the platforms.
Yeah.
We redid part of the hike to get to the second platform, because I think that's where the best view is, to be honest.
I agree.
And yeah, it was worth it. The pictures were beautiful, the video was beautiful. It was just like, I've been to similar hikes like that. Like, I've been to the top of Haleakala in Hawaii, but there are something about these sharp shards intertwined between the clouds and the sun setting.
Yeah.
It just felt incredible to be there.
Yeah.
It was windy and cold. I loved it. I got all the photos I wanted to get, but I still felt unsatisfied because we didn't complete the full hike.
I agree. We have to go back.
Yeah, we will go back.
Yeah.
But once we were done with our photos and everything and sunset, we drove back down.
And wanted to go for dinner.
Yeah. And as we were driving, I saw this restaurant on the side of the road that just looked like there was so much energy. So we drove past it at first.
And then we said, why go through the trouble of finding a restaurant in Funchal when this looks cool? So Michael whipped around and we went back.
And the restaurant is called Abrigo do Pastor.
Yeah.
Really busy, so I would recommend making a reservation there.
Yeah.
If you can. But basically, the restaurant used to be a cabin that used to provide shelter for hunters.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like open flame grilling, steaks, and there's this cute little bar. And in that bar, you can get poncha and some beer while you're waiting, and then they seat you and give you this incredible meal. It was so cozy. We sat by the fireplace. And
so rewarding after that experience.
Yeah, like imagine you did the Pico hikes for sunset, and then you go to like this cabin style restaurant that's been there since like, I don't know, like the 1960s or something, or however long it's been, and you get to have this beautiful flame grilled meal. It was a perfect way to end that day. And then that basically brought us to our last day. And of course, on our last day when we woke up, the weather was perfect.
So we went for a sunrise mission.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So we drove all the way to the east of the island, because if you've seen a photo of the map of Madeira, it goes really, really narrow in the east. And we went to a place called Miradoro da Ponta de Rosta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just Ponta de Rosta, I think.
Is it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you made the name extra elegant.
I made it extra long.
Yeah, but it was really, really beautiful there.
Yeah.
Easy drive. You have to drive past the airport.
Again, parking right there.
Parking's right there. It's an area that seems like they do a lot of barbecuing in the summer or whatnot. But yeah, you get these insane, beautiful views that reminded me of Algarve. Peaks just spiking out of the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's actually... Oh, this guy's having a little party in the park. But yeah, there's not a lot to do there outside of looking at that. I think there was just some other areas you could hike, but we didn't do that.
No.
The one thing that really made it a little bit less fun to be there was it was just super high winds.
Yeah.
Because Madeira just always has crazy high winds, hence the whole airplane and airport situation. Yeah. But yeah, we got some beautiful photos there. And then we drove back to our hotel.
Packed up, got ready.
And we ended up going into town quickly to grab lunch. And we ended up eating at this place called Bananas Pub. Cute little area just in the Santa Maria area, the old town. Good prices. It's called Bananas Pub, I think, because there's just so many banana plantations on Madeira.
Yeah, which is so cool.
It's just cozy and cute. It looks not like a place that would be super cool, but it was great.
We enjoyed the food a lot.
The poncha.
The poncha. Yeah.
And then close by is an area where the water meets sort of like this boat, this pier sort of thing. And when we walked in there, there's actually a little bar that you can get drinks, but there was just tons of people sunbathing, like a ton of locals.
On a Monday morning.
Yeah. And everyone was just sunbathing on the cement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was something I hadn't seen before, but apparently they just do that often.
Yeah. I see that a lot in Mallorca too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Italy, maybe, I think. So that was the trip. The hotel that we stayed at was what was it called again?
It was called
the Arts Inn.
Yeah, Arts Inn.
And it was a beautiful old mansion that had a new sort of architecturally focused wing attached to where all the rooms were, and it was a really beautiful hotel. Breakfast was included, and it was a great breakfast with insane service by the staff. They were super kind. You got a hot meal. They asked you how you wanted your hot meal. You get waffles, eggs, fruits, vegetables, punch of the day. It was incredible.
And breakfast was either served on the terrace with the view of the ocean or inside the mansion. It
was really great experience. I'll put all the links and information of what we did down in the description to hopefully help you plan your trip a little bit better. I would say that this trip was very much a heartbreaking trip for me personally, because when we were leaving Porto to go on this trip, I had said to Kat, I really want to make something special here because I think Madeira is going to be a special place. And I knew that the landscape was going to be very, very unique. Mm-hmm. And so I had this idea that I wanted to make a short film. And I didn't really have a title yet. I mentioned this before, but I did have a bit of a concept. And I wanted to sort of base it off of the 4 elements, which is earth, fire, wind, and water. And well, we got a lot of wind.
And we got a lot of water.
And I guess we got a little bit of fire from the sun, the beautiful sunset below. I was hoping for more of those sunsets. Yeah. And the earth element. To be fair, reflecting back on all of this, I'm sure I could have put that together, because I think in the end, you when you have an idea on something creative, the only thing holding you back is yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it was me and the mental space that I was in, where I was like, the weather's not exactly how I expected it to be, so I can't make this happen. But really, I probably could have. It just would have turned out a little bit differently.
Because no one else knows what you had in your mind.
Yeah.
Except you.
Yeah. So a little sort of personal journey for me there is like, I probably could have persevered through and made it happen, but that just gives me another opportunity to go back and make this happen.
Yeah, we'll definitely be back.
Yeah, it was highly recommended. Ooh, and quickly, before we sign off here, flying out is the same situation as flying in. 7 planes got turned away and not able to land. They got rerouted to Gran Canaria or mainland Portugal. Mm-hmm. So all those people waiting to leave had to stay there for either a whole other day at the airport or delayed by 3 to 4 hours. We were lucky. Our plane looped the skies. I have a screenshot. I might put it up. Our plane looped the skies maybe 6 or 7 times before they were given permission to land because of the wind. And it landed.
And we got to leave.
We got to leave. It is such a unique place, and the airport's unique. The landscape is unique. You drive under the runway several times to get through to certain areas on the island. So what I would say is the island is special. It can be affordable, actually really affordable. Mm-hmm. There are some great spots for food and live music, which we didn't get to experience in the nighttime because it rained all the time. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I think it's definitely an island that I want to go back to, because you get so much in one day. You're driving and you feel like you're on a tropical island, and then 30 minutes later you feel like you're on Vancouver Island because the landscape's changed so much.
Absolutely. But that's pretty much it. This video is getting pretty long. I'm looking at it right now. It's 30 minutes? Mm-hmm. Oh wow. Okay. Well, then it is what it is. So if you have any questions and you are going to Madeira, leave them in the comment section below. I'll try to answer as many as I can and give you as much help as I possibly can. If you want to avoid the rain and wind as much as we did, from what I understand, it's better to go in the fall season, which is, that September, October, November. Mm-hmm. But that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening and watching this little reflections on Madeira. It's been therapeutic to get all this off my chest, and now I can move forward with the next Madeira adventure, hopefully. But that's pretty much it. So, as always, live passionately
and stay inspired. Bye.
Look through the looking glass, where feelings are much larger.